Thanks for checking out this video. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to rank and kind of review all of the Vinegar Syndrome releases for March. Now, when I say that, these are just the subscriber included ones. Each month when I do this, if I buy any past that, like, Vinegar Syndrome's labs or VSAs or anything that's not included that is Vinegar Syndrome but is released that month, I will also include it in this review. But for the month of March, I didn't purchase anything additional, so it's just the 3 titles that were included in my subscribership. So, gonna start with my number 3 ranked one for the releases, which I still liked, and that is the double pack of Spectres and Maya. Now, this was my lowest ranked, mainly because the quality of the films themselves were lower than the other 2 films that I'm going to end up going over. And the special features weren't as great as for the other 2 films. So, still a good release. I still enjoyed it. I am a sucker for Italian horror, especially older Italian horror. And I will say Spectres is my favorite of the 2. This is the one they kind of led with. I understand this was why this one's kind of like the leading one for the package, because in my opinion it is the best one. It has wonderful atmosphere. It's one of those things where like ruins are revealed, found, and then things are disturbed. Demonic / ghost type things end up happening throughout the film. There have been a lot of Italian films like this. And I will say that this film gives me really strong Lucio Fulci vibes, a la Manhattan Baby. And I've also seen some other films that I can't recall at the moment that were older Italian horror films that felt very similar. Same type of setup, same type of stuff going on in the film. But I think it's pretty well done. It is slow. The pacing's very slow, but the atmosphere is really good. It feels wonderful and creepy, and the sound design is really good, and you get some really good practical effects. And I do feel like even though the pacing is slow, at good intervals, you get something wild happening. That's when like the demonic or the ghostly things end up happening. And this one is definitely a lot of fun. It's not a great film, but especially if you're into old Italian horror, I think you will find a lot to like about it. So that one is a lot of fun. I'll just go ahead and talk about Maya then, and I'll talk about the special features a little bit. So for Maya, this one I could also see people having some fun with. I didn't have a whole lot of fun with it. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't something I was really all that into because the pacing on this one is even worse than Spectres, and you don't get enough interesting, fun, gory, practical effects driven things going on. The story's not great. It's very similar to Spectres, where it's like, oh, ancient ruins type thing, and then stuff happens. Very similar films done by the same director, Marcello Avallone, who is interviewed in the special features, which his interviews are not the greatest, to be honest, and I'll talk about that when we get to the special features, but not the fault of Vinegar Syndrome at all. It's just, he's not a great interview, in my opinion. But Maya is just, it's okay. Could I watch it again? Maybe. There are a few fun scenes. There are a few kind of quirky, interesting, fun characters in it, but the story just really doesn't come together all that well. And like I said, it's too slow. There aren't enough interesting things that pop up at good intervals. But let's talk about like how wonderful this packaging is, though. Like, this artwork looks awesome, especially like the hooks hanging up here. And with Spectres, this looks wonderful. Like those, whatever this creature is, arms coming out of the bed and grabbing this woman, that scene is in there, and it's a very fun scene. So artwork, packaging, it's always like top notch. It looks outstanding. These are Blu-rays, not 4Ks, but that's totally fine. They look really good. So let's talk about the special features on these. So for Spectres, you do get audio commentaries for both of these, which is very common with Vinegar Syndrome releases. I don't do the audio commentaries to do these reviews just because that would take me a lot more time. I don't really have the time to sit down and watch each of these movies twice because I'm trying to cover a lot of movies with my channel and just watch a lot of movies in my life. But if I go back to these, I will probably watch them with the commentary. But there's a feature called Little Roman Ghosts, which is an interview with director co-writer Marcello Avallone. this is where I can tell you that I just don't like his interviews because he has a tendency to really stray off topic a lot. And especially for this, he does an interview for Maya, he does an interview for Spectres. The overwhelming majority of the interviews are not about the films. He spends a very small segment talking about the films. He doesn't say a lot about them, and then he's mainly just talking about other things in his career that aren't really connected. So if you just want to hear like some of his experiences that are very randomly kind of thrown out there, you'll enjoy it. But I don't like his interviews. I find them very boring. But again, that's not Vinegar Syndrome's fault or Eugenio Ercolani's fault who does these. Then we have Paranormal Roman Activity, an interview with producer, co-writer Maurizio Tedesco. He was interesting. Again, though, doesn't talk about the film Spectres much. He also had one for Maya, but again, barely talks about Maya or Spectres in those interviews, which is a very weird thing, but way better at being interviewed and pretty entertaining. Little Spectres, Little Demons, an interview with special effects artist Sergio Stivoletti. That one was interesting, mainly just from the standpoint of Sergio Stivoletti has worked on a lot of films, and he goes over a lot of those films and talks about his experiences doing the effects, so that was pretty interesting and cool, but again, he doesn't talk about the movie Spectres much, which is a weird thing. And then A Horrific Anomaly, an interview with the film historian Eugenio Ercolani. That one's probably the best of those special features, in my opinion, because he does a really good job of kind of talking through the significance of these types of films and just kind of the history of these filmmakers, which is cool. And then Simply Emma, an audio interview with the actress Erna Schurer. That one was okay. Again, she didn't really talk about the movie much. So, and then for the special features for Maya, audio commentary again, Mexican Connection, an interview with Marcelo Avalone. Already told you how I feel about his interviews. Second time around, an interview with producer, co-writer Maurizio Tedesco. Already talked about how he does. Scream Queen Memories, an interview with actress Mirella D'Angelo. That one was a really good interview. Again, she didn't talk much about the actual film Maya, but she did talk about her film career in a very engaging way. She was a very interesting interview, and I did really like that one. Mystical Mayan Melodies, an interview with composer Gabriel Ducros. That one is okay. He, again, didn't talk much about the actual film Maya, but he did talk about his career kind of composing, and if you're into that, that's interesting. I'm not really into it, but I can see where people would find value. So, my number 3 of the releases for March, Spectres / Maya. All right, now getting to Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. This is a 4K. This one, obviously, the packaging looks wonderful. I love it. I love the artwork on this, looking so great. So one of the great things about this one is the cast. This is an anthology film, or as they say, a portmanteau. It has Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Donald Sutherland in it. Great cast. It's very well acted. The stories, some are pretty good, some are not the greatest, and the amount of time they spend on them are kind of disparate. But the overarching, tying it together story is very compelling and interesting and fun. And that's really only where you see Peter Cushing anyway, which are some of the best moments of him and Christopher Lee interacting. Their characters interacting. But the film is fun. It's not the greatest anthology film, but it feels cozy. It is fun. It is very much of its time. It's from 1965. It's a good release. I did like it, and obviously it looks really great. So as far as the special features go, they have obviously commentary track, A New Home of Horror, a featurette including never-before-seen interviews with actress Katie Wilde, second assistant director Hugh Harlow, prop man Arthur Wicks, continuity supervisor Pauline Harlow, and dubbing mixer John Aldred. That one was pretty interesting to get some good kind of behind-the-scenes stuff, although a lot of those people, it seems like, it's been so long, they don't remember a ton from it. They kind of did what they could, but it's good to, get what they knew or remember. Tales of Terror, author Stephen Thrower on Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. That one was my favorite feature on here. A really interesting guy, very engaging interview, and he also has so much to say. He basically reviews the film. He does a very intelligent, interesting, deep dive review of the film in a not very long amount of time. It's only 39 minutes for a very in-depth review, and there's a lot of interesting things that he points out about the film. So I think that's kind of a must-watch if you watch this film. That's my favorite of the special features. Then they has House of Cards, an archival making of documentary, which is 58 minutes, almost an hour. That's a good one. That one was really good. Tells you a lot about the film. Really well done. And then they have an archival video interview with actor Kenny Lynch, actress Ann Bell, and actor Jeremy Kemp. Those are a good time just to get their experiences. Archival audio interviews with writer-producer Milton Subotsky and producer Max Rosenberg, which are also interesting just to get their insights into, how the film came to be and their experiences making it. But this is my number 2 because this is a pretty good release, especially if you like anthology films, especially if you like older horror films, and especially if you like this cast, because that's where it really shines. Like I said, not all the stories are the greatest, but there are enough good, fun stories to really drive the film home. And the ending, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you really think about the entirety of the film, is a fun, interesting, great vibes ending. So, Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, my number 2. I like it. Then we have my number 1, which is the film that I was least excited to watch when I got my movies. Although I have to admit, it is a pretty awesome release by Vinegar Syndrome. Singapore Sling. First of all, I do love the artwork on this. That is some really amazing, messed up artwork. The back goes along with it, but I don't like it as much as the front. Like, this image is just, outstanding. So this movie is not for everyone. I'll say that. My wife sat down and saw part of it when I was watching it. I told her she might not want to watch it. And she was like, this is disturbing. I didn't find it disturbing, but I definitely see where people would find it disturbing. It is kind of extreme. It's basically a noir film mixed with an erotic film. Very heavy on the erotic aspect, but there's, disturbing erotic stuff that goes on for some people. It goes far. I'll just say that much. I don't want to say too much to really spoil the film, but I will say that the pacing is very slow, unfortunately. That's one of the hardest things for me about the film. Also, the fact that it just seems very stuck in the erotic aspect and trying to shock. But it looks phenomenal. It's so well shot. It's in black and white, which I think actually makes it look even better. And it gives it more of that kind of noir feel. The story has a really cool noir aspect to it. So if you like film noir, you will find that interesting. And the acting is really good, but also kind of bad, but intentionally so. It's just interesting. It's very interesting, kind of fun acting. And that really sucked me in addition to the aesthetics of the film. I don't know if this is a film I'll necessarily watch again. And after I was done watching it, I'm like, yeah, no, definitely not going to watch it again. But I then watched the special features and then started thinking, well, maybe, because they give you so much interesting context and insight into the mind of the filmmaker, which was Nikos Nikolaitis, who apparently was very influential as far as Greek cinema goes, at least. And they actually, in one of the features, tied him to inspiring Yorgos Lanthimos, who obviously is a huge name right now with films like The Favorite and Poor Things most recently. But the films I've seen of his are Dogtooth and The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which are really good, but also really unsettling films. And you can see when you watch this film the inspiration that was potentially taken from Nikolaitis by Lanthimos. So, talking about special features, Directing Hell, a documentary from 2011 exploring the work of director Nikos Nikolaitis. That's an 80-minute long feature, which is very in-depth, really interesting, talking about him as a filmmaker and his kind of body of work, which makes me want to watch more of his films, honestly. This seems to be the most extreme one and the one that resonated with people the most because it is kind of shocking, but also beautiful and well-made. But that documentary did such a good job of kind of letting you know who he is if you've never seen any of his films. and understanding a little bit more where he was coming from by making Singapore Sling. So that was quite interesting. Brand new interview with Marie Louise Bartholomew, wife of director Nikos Nicolaitis. That was good from the perspective of obviously her knowing Nicolaitis a lot better and being able to kind of give some insight into his feelings, who he was as a person, and how he kind of felt about the film and put himself into it. Then we have a brand new interview with actress Michelle Valley, who is in the film, obviously. And she was interesting because she had a lot of things to say about like how she approached the role. And one of the things is she started just like randomly speaking French at times in the film, which was not in the script, but Nicolaitis ended up liking it. And he was just like, yeah, kind of like however you feel, just go ahead and throw it in here and there. And I think it does add a little something to the film. So it's very interesting to get her take on all that stuff and how being in kind of like a very odd film like this was for her as an experience. Then there's a brand new interview with actor Panos Thanasoulis. I hope I got that right, kind of. He also, obviously, in the film, did a really good job of kind of talking about his perspective with the film, how he was able to work with Nicolaitis, and Nicolaitis's demeanor on the set. Apparently, he was like a really nice guy, but at the same time, like when he was on the set, he was a little bit harder to work with, and he kind of pushed things. But there's a lot of respect there from the people he worked with. Then there's a brand new interview with cinematographer Aris Stavro. That one was really interesting. It was only 5 minutes long, just to get an idea of kind of, the aesthetics, where those were coming from with what he was doing. And then there was a 20-page booklet with an essay by film scholar David Church. That essay in here is very, very good. And the essay in particular, that essay plus that long feature on here were the two things that really made me start thinking deeper about the film even more. It's not just about shock value. There's a lot more there. Also, in one of the features, they have a clip of Nicolaitis talking about kind of how he makes film. And he was just basically like, I just make film. Like, I just write what I think, I write what I feel, and it's up to other people to interpret it, which seems like a very like John Carpenter type thing. That's what John Carpenter's always done. Obviously, Nicolaitis is very different than John Carpenter as far as a writer and, director goes. But, yeah, just really interesting to start thinking even deeper about that stuff. He also said that he bakes kind of Greek mythology into his films too. And when you think about that, you can definitely see it in Singapore Sling. So it's this very odd marriage of noir, erotica, and Greek mythology. And you're just like, it's kind of mind-blowing, to be honest. Like, it is a very interesting experience. It's not going to be one that everyone likes. I wouldn't say I liked watching it, but I have a lot of respect for it after reading the essay that's in here and seeing the special features, which the essay is top-notch, like wonderful. So much interesting stuff that you weren't thinking about when watching the film, most likely. So I do highly recommend it. As much as I was reticent to like get into this, it was a great release, and I have a lot of respect for Singapore Sling, even though I may never watch it again. I don't know, but anyway, that's why Singapore Sling is my number one. Hopefully, everyone liked this video, or enough people liked it. Go ahead and put your comments down there. We can talk about these movies. What did you get? What do you like? What do you not like? What are your feelings on it? What are you thinking about picking up from Vinegar Syndrome at the moment, if anything? Do me a favor and hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate that. Also, hit the notification bell button so you know when I'm putting up new videos, if you want to help me out that way. And the thumbs up on my videos helps with the YouTube algorithm, so I appreciate that. But regardless, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this. It is very much appreciated. And until next time, keep it brutal.